afternoon. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Sheila Lamb, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you who are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 26 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one advising services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, How to Manage Your WordPress Website, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network. Save the date for our next webinar in the Digital Bootcamp series, Success Through E-Commerce, on June 17th at noon, and I'll drop that link into the chat momentarily. We are recording today's presentation, and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the large number of participants, everyone's microphone is muted and the chat feature is turned off. But if you have questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box, and we will address them at the end of the session. We have also enabled the live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your own meeting controls. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today's session, Cameron Nelson, CEO of Tenzing Startup Consultants. Cameron has over 20 years of experience in technology and as a senior tech consultant in Silicon Valley, helping Fortune 500 companies improve their digital marketing and e-commerce. At the same time, he founded several tech companies, including a software as a service website for tree preservation and a blockchain platform for nonprofits. Cameron is accomplished in language, culture, has an MBA and MA, and believes new technology products have the ability to help shape our world for the better. Please join me in welcoming our presenter today, Cameron Nelson.
Thank you for the introduction. And hello, everybody. Welcome to this session on how to manage your WordPress website. Whether or not you're brand new to building a website, or you've actually already have experience making a website, maybe even in WordPress or one of the other platforms, I hope that this presentation will be very informative for you and helpful as you try to dig deeper into what WordPress is and determine if it is the best platform to have your business's website built upon. I look forward to answering as many of your questions as we can get through at the end of the presentation, so feel free to put those into the Q&A box anytime, and we will go through those at the very end. And with that, let's jump right into it. We have three goals for the presentation today. The first goal is to discover what WordPress is and learn if your business should be using it. Second, we're going to talk about a very popular WordPress editing layout called Elementor. Some of you might have heard of this, and I get asked a lot about what is Elementor and how does it tie into WordPress. So I'm going to show you the basics of Elementor so you have a really firm understanding of what that is and how to use it. Next, we're going to show you how to set up your WordPress website by finding your theme, which is kind of the starting template of your WordPress website. And lastly, I'm going to show you how to customize that theme and set it up for your unique business and get it all ready to launch. So first, I want to start by talking a little bit about what WordPress is and what it is not. WordPress has started as a way for people to create blogs a long time ago. It's over 10 years old, so it's been around a long, long time, longer than most other website building platforms. But it's evolved a lot since its early days of a blogging platform into one of the most robust and widely supported and widely used website building platforms in the entire world. There's even some Fortune 500 companies, huge companies that use WordPress to run their website. So it can scale up and handle as much traffic and as much complexity in a website as you need, which is really nice. Now, you're going to have some work to do if you've never used WordPress before to learn about it as a system, as a platform. For anybody who's already built a website, learning about WordPress won't be a challenge. It's just a couple of hours. But if you've never built a website before, if you don't have much inclination to learn technical things, then WordPress might feel a bit overwhelming. And so that can be a turnoff for some people as they get into WordPress. And I'm going to talk more about how you can evaluate if WordPress is the correct platform for you in a moment. But let me tell you some of the main benefits of using WordPress. Now, my experience is I've helped about 80 to 100 small businesses and startups build websites. A lot have been on WordPress, over 50%, but I've also used the other main platforms out there. So I'm speaking from my own experience and the experience of these small businesses. Now, WordPress is widely supported. So as a platform, if the visitor of your website is going to be on a mobile device, like an iPhone, or Android phone, or a tablet, or a computer, whether it's Mac or Windows or Linux or something else, WordPress is supported on all those platforms very, very well. So your website's going to show up, it's going to function normally and efficiently, so it's going to provide a good experience. Another benefit of using WordPress is that multiple users can help you build your website. So you might have a friend or a coworker or somebody you hire that you want them to do certain pages or certain parts of pages and set those up. You can create their own logins for that and maintain really tight security over your website, both as it's being built after it's been built and launched. If you need somebody to have access to it, you can give them that and then remove the access when the work is done. Next is that WordPress, you can choose your own website host. And whenever I mention the website host, this is the company that is storing your website files on a server computer somewhere in the world. It could be in the US, it might not be. It doesn't really matter. And some of these companies are Google and GoDaddy. And what they do is when somebody goes to your website, they serve up the web pages. So with WordPress, you can choose any hosting platform out there, and there's hundreds or thousands to choose from. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. If you want price is your main concern, or you have some features you need, you can find a host out there that's a good fit. Next is that there's a great plugin library written by third-party professional developers that you can get plugins for free, or sometimes they have a small payment. They can add functionality and enhancements to your existing WordPress template that you pick, which is the starting foundations of your website. So the plugins are really quite unique and powerful to WordPress as a platform. Next is that WordPress is built with search engine or SEO, search engine optimization in mind. And so as Google or Microsoft or any other search engine changes their algorithms, happens about once a year, WordPress as a nonprofit organization behind it updates the WordPress platform to be compliant and making sure that your website is going to have a good basic foundation for SEO without you having to do anything. WordPress also offers many customizable themes or templates. Themes and templates is sometimes used interchangeably to describe these, but they're just starting places for your website to have some basic page structure, layout, and content that you can quickly swap out for your own and get that website up and running. Most people who build a WordPress website start with a theme or template because about 80% of the work then is already done for you. And lastly, most of the website hosts that you might choose from offer a one-click install of the WordPress platform. So you don't need to be a developer or programmer to actually get WordPress up and running. Anybody can do it. It's usually a simple button you click and it will be done for you. Now, as I mentioned, there's a learning curve, and I think that most people hear this presentation are definitely capable of learning what you need to build a website in WordPress. But in addition to the learning part, anticipate spending 2 to 5 hours per month maintaining your WordPress website. Now, if you as a business owner want to delegate it, that's fine, but just keep in mind somebody will need to be spending a few hours a month doing things like installing updates. There might be small bugs or typos to fix. You might be updating content on pages, etc. Now, there's a few platforms that have a little bit less of the monthly maintenance hours required. Some of those are Squarespace and Wix, which I'm going to dive more deeper into here in a second. So if WordPress at the end of the presentation you feel is just too complex and overwhelming for your simple needs, then some of these other platforms could be good alternatives. So I mentioned that there's several main competing platforms to WordPress. WordPress has a lot of great features, but depending on your needs, I've seen businesses use any one of these other three options and been very satisfied with them. On the other hand, I've seen businesses start with Wix, Squarespace, or Shopify, and only to find out in a year or two that they can't have a feature that they really need, or they can't be flexible enough to change their website to sell the products in the way they need to, and they end up having to move to WordPress, which means rebuilding the entire website from scratch on WordPress, which is a painful process if you're a business already in operation. So I recommend that you choose the platform you want very carefully And I'm going to give you some pros and cons for each of these here so you have a better understanding of what the differences are. We already talked a lot about WordPress, right? It's got thousands of plugins, themes. You do have to pay for your own hosting, but you can pick that hosting plan at any company, and there's some very affordable ones out there. I've talked about the pros, cons, or steeper learning curve. If you don't maintain and update your plugins whenever there's an update available, your website could be in risk of, being hacked. So that is a bigger issue here that if you're not paying attention than these other platforms. And WordPress itself is free. I mentioned it's run by a nonprofit organization called WordPress.org. And the only thing you pay for to use WordPress is that hosting plan, which ranges between $6 and $10 a month. And so it's quite affordable. The next option here is Wix. Wix offers a really simple drag and drop website building experience. It has some AI features built into it, and it gives you some automated design features as you're building your platform. Now, building your website. So Wix as a platform is your host. You don't have any options with Wix. So if you don't like their pricing or you don't like their features, you're stuck. And some people have to leave Wix eventually because of that. Pros are that it's very user friendly to build that initial website, but the con is that it's less flexible and doesn't give you many options to switch around the look and the layout, and you can't switch your template once the site is live. Plans start at around $14 a month, but they can get quite more expensive if you need additional features. Next is Squarespace. This is similar to Wix. It's an all-in-one website building platform. It also integrates the hosting with Squarespace, so you have no other options for the host. You get some really beautiful looking websites, very modern websites. They can be used for e-commerce selling, if you just want a blog or a service-based website, or you want to have a portfolio of your professional work. Some of the pros are that it offers, again, beautifully designed websites, very modern, that work well on mobile devices and all of that. It integrates analytics as well, so you have the ability to see who your website visitors are and what they're doing on your site. It's less flexible than WordPress and also offers limited third-party integration. So that plugin store that is so robust on WordPress, Squarespace has a very small selection of some of those, but it is not as fully featured. Plans start at $12 a month for a simple personal hosting plan, $18 a month for a business. But if you want e-commerce, so meaning you want to sell a product and take a credit card payment on your website, those e-commerce plans start even higher than 18 a month and then go up to 50, 80, $100 a month, depending on what level you need. So it can get very, very expensive with Squarespace. Lastly is Shopify. This is specifically designed to help you as a small business build a website for e-commerce to sell your products online. If you're not selling a product online, like maybe you just have a hair salon or a service-based business and your website is mainly to tell people about it, have your contact information, you're not selling a product online, you don't need Shopify. Shopify is really focused on helping you sell. And also, if you're selling online but have a physical presence, so maybe you have a farmer's market or a stall somewhere or a storefront, Shopify can give you a physical point of sale system, card reader, which integrates um, transparently and flawlessly with your online store. So it's quite nice if you want to have one inventory management system, one billing system for both online and physical locations. Shopify is really good with that. The pros are that it's e-commerce focused, integrated payment solutions. It also has an app store for features. These are like the WordPress plugins. The cons, however, are the monthly fees can get very, very steep, like with Squarespace. Plans start at $29 a month minimum, but most of you would need the $79 a month for the e-commerce kind of platform, and it goes all the way up to $300 a month if you're selling a lot of products or you need a lot of things in your inventory. You can pay up to $300 a month with Shopify. So, four different options here. For many, many businesses that I meet with, WordPress is the best all-around option, and that's what we're going to focus on for the rest of the presentation. But I get asked these questions a lot, so I wanted to give you all this information up front so you have this well-rounded understanding of your options. In the last year or so, AI has been integrated into so many aspects of online happenings online, right? It's in the searches, it's in social media, and even when you're building a website now, AI is cropping up. WordPress has integrated AI in several ways. It can instantly generate text for your website, or you can give it a short snippet like an idea, and it can then build out the text from some ideas you have, which is really nice. It can also use AI to translate your website into any language on the fly. Particularly useful if you're selling to people who have English as not a primary language. Can be Spanish, French. You can translate to any one of hundreds of global languages. So you don't need to really program that or spend any money on that translation. So those are really nice features that are just built right into WordPress with AI. Now, I get asked a lot in the comments, what is this thing called Elementor? Elementor is one of the primary editing interfaces you will find if you get started with a WordPress website. It's not the only editing interface. And in a few minutes, I'm going to show you an example of a live website that doesn't use Elementor. But because I get asked this question a lot, I wanted to show you briefly what Elementor is, so at least you know when you see it. Elementor is this popular WordPress page building plugin interface, essentially. It lets you to drag and drop different elements onto a page to customize it. So you can put together a page that has complex layouts and integrate your design elements. So you want a text box, you want an image, you want a video placement. You can just drag and drop them onto a blank page and kind of rearrange them. Elementor gives you the ability to do all that. So it's pretty cool. And it's ideal for beginners who want to just quickly modify or create a new page, or for advanced users, you can program and code and make this more fancy. To get started with Elementor, if it doesn't come with your template already, you can go to the plugin section on your website and your dashboard, and I'll show you all these sections here in a moment. So if you've never seen this before, don't worry, but you can upload and install it, and then you'll have the ability to edit a page with Elementor. This is in step 2. And then in the right here in step 3, start designing, you got these different options, your text, your images, your videos, and dozens of others. These are things you just drag onto the website to build it. So if you start with a template, you're going to have what these pages built for you, but you might want to customize them, and Elementor is a good way to do that. Here's a little bit more zoomed in view of what Elementor looks like. Over on the left here, you have those elements you can drag onto the page. Just to the right of them is a completely empty page. It says drag widget here. So widget would be like the text heading or a button or a video, these types of things. So this is just a quick overview of Elementor. If you have any questions about Elementor that I don't cover in the rest of the presentation, feel free to ask them at the end. Another thing that's really important to understand as you build your website in WordPress is how do you keep your website secure? And these tips aren't specific to WordPress necessarily, but any website you build online, there's a few security practices that are going to be good to follow. Because WordPress makes up about 43% of websites built on the internet, right? Almost 50% of websites in 2024 are built in WordPress. It's a huge amount of sites, which makes it a huge target for hackers. So you can secure your website, and the advantages are to, of course, protect any user data that's stored on there, protect your own data, your own images, text, making sure nothing gets changed without your permission. Protect your reputation as a business, and also make sure your website isn't taken down offline because that could result in significant loss of revenue for your business. There's 4 tips here that I'm going to give you that will ensure that your website is following the best practices for security as it relates to building it on WordPress. So the first one is to update WordPress, the core operating system WordPress, to the latest version. This will patch many security vulnerabilities as they're discovered by the WordPress team, that nonprofit organization, and patched. You can keep all of the plugins and themes you have up to date with patches and updates that they will notify you about. And all you need to do is click a button that says, yes, I want to update it. The most common form of hacking on a website on WordPress is when a plugin or theme is left unupdated for too long, which probably means a year or more, and it then has security vulnerabilities that hackers can easily access. Secondly, is to use a strong password when you log into WordPress. So you as a business owner will be the primary administrator for the website. So you'll have a username and a password. You always want to use a password that's going to be complex, preferably random, right? Using multiple uppercase, lowercase, and letters, numbers, and special symbols. These types of things will make sure that brute force attacks or people trying to guess your administrative password are very unlikely to succeed. As I mentioned, WordPress has a lot of different plugins. There are a lot of security-focused plugins as well. Here's some that are very popular and work very well, I think. All of these are links, by the way. So when you get emailed this presentation, you can just click on the name and it'll jump to the page where you can learn more about it and install it in WordPress. So we have WordFence, Securi, and Solid Security. All of these have a free level, and you can also pay to kind of upgrade their capabilities. But for many of you, I think just having a basic free level of a security plugin will help you. It'll do real-time protection against many common threats. It can give you a firewall, scan your website content for malware, which would be like a virus that's just sitting there waiting to activate, and security hardening, like helping recommend better passwords or different things they notice that you're not doing well with on your WordPress. And the last tip is to limit login attempts. So you can restrict the number of login attempts to prevent what I mentioned as a brute force attack. This is just some algorithm trying to guess your administrative password. Now, by default, WordPress doesn't really implement a limit to the number of login attempts. So given unlimited time and millions of guesses, passwords can be guessed. So there's a couple plugins that are good for preventing this. One's called Login Lockdown or Jetpack Protect. There's others as well, but these are a couple I recommend that can work in addition to the security plugins mentioned in step 3. If you specifically want to limit the number of login attempts, which I recommend you do. So, of course, security on a website can be an entire hour, 2-hour discussion on its own, but this is just an introduction to the core concepts that you need to be aware of. And if you have any additional questions, please let me know. Another very common question I get when talking about building WordPress websites is, what is WordPress.com? I mean, it's got the same logo. It's got a W with a circle around it, but they have different fonts and a different domain name. So we have WordPress.org and WordPress.com. I'm going to go through the differences here so everybody's clear. But there are some major differences, and WordPress.org is the platform that most of you should be focused on. WordPress.org is what we've been discussing so far today. It offers the full theme support. So any theme you find made for WordPress from any developer will work on a WordPress.org website. On WordPress.com, they give you very limited themes. They choose just a few for you, and you can't go outside of the constraints that they put in place. And WordPress.org websites, you have access to all of the great plugins in the plugin store. And on WordPress.com, they don't allow you access to any plugins. With WordPress.org, you pay those hosting fees, which are typically between $6 and $10 a month. WordPress.com does have one advantage here, was they give you free hosting up to around 3 gigabytes of storage. So that's nice on WordPress.com. But on WordPress.org, they give you full e-commerce freedom. So you're able to sell your products. You can have any type of sales system you want, individual, monthly subscriptions, annual billing, whatever you want. Whereas on WordPress.com, they only allow you to sell and take credit card payments if you upgrade to a plan of $45 a month. So it gets very, very expensive to be selling e-commerce with WordPress.com. WordPress.org gives you complete branding freedom. As I mentioned, some huge businesses all over the world use WordPress.org, and you would never know it was built on the platform. It doesn't say WordPress anywhere. Whereas WordPress.com, they're going to say it's built by WordPress.com all over your website, and you have to pay additional to remove their branding. So it looks less professional. WordPress.org gives you all of the search engine optimization features you could ever want. You can go as detailed and as in-depth with those as possible there, whereas WordPress.com gives you very limited control over your search engine optimization. WordPress.org also gives you full analytic abilities. You can install Google Analytics or Facebook Pixel or any type of analytic tracking software you want to see a ton of data about your users, their habits, and help you fine-tune your website. Whereas on WordPress.com, they give you just their own little suite of analytic tools, which is, in my opinion, very limited, not very useful. On WordPress.org, you do the maintenance and update those plugins when there's an update available. And this is nothing scary. There's just usually a button you click once, it takes a few seconds, and then it's updated. So it's nothing that's very hard. But you do have to pay attention and update those when they become available. WordPress.com does the updates for you. So when you compare these two columns, almost everybody needs to be focused on WordPress.org websites because you're probably selling e-commerce and you don't want to pay $45 a month just to do that on WordPress.com. And they also have a lot of other limitations, like I just mentioned. So you've chosen WordPress.org to build your website on. The next thing you're going to do is to select your theme. The theme is the starting look and design of your website. It's going to have everything from a layout of your elements like images, text, videos, buttons. They're going to have thought of all that for you. It's going to have the fonts. It's going to have even a bunch of sample pages you can customize and tweak to your heart's content to use for your own website. There's a few good places to get a theme. And the first one is the official WordPress site here. It's wordpress.org/themes. And again, you don't need to worry about writing down any of these links. This entire presentation will be sent to you, so you'll just have them. I think the WordPress.org themes they're very basic. They're not going to work for many businesses who are looking to sell products. They're mainly just a bare bones type of beginner website that could be sufficient if you just have a services-based business. But for most people, you want to look at these other two options. Well, I really like this one called Theme Forest. Theme Forest has thousands of themes built for WordPress. They're very professional, modern, and you can search by an industry that you're in. So say you're a bakery or a plumber or a bird rescue center. If you search for this type of industry or business, you're going to probably find themes that have been custom tailored for this type of business or this organization, right? Even if you're like a nonprofit organization, there's themes for everything out there, which means professionals have already thought about, well, what does this website for this type of business need to look like? And they've gone through, best practices and research design. And so you don't need to create it from scratch. It's kind of been done for you. So ThemeForest is great for that. The next option here is ColorLib. ColorLib also has some beautifully made themes from worldwide developers that are very modern, sleek, and you can also search by industry. So once you find your theme from either one of these three, you're ready to continue with WordPress. Now, I want to mention briefly what the search engine optimization looks like in WordPress. As I mentioned, WordPress is continually updating its own backend algorithms to be compliant with Google and Microsoft and the updates they make constantly. But SEO matters a lot because one, it drives organic traffic, which means traffic that is just from a search result. You don't need to pay for an ad. You don't need to pay for this traffic and this customer. It comes to you automatically. And you need to improve your site's visibility on the search engines, and that's the search engine optimization. WordPress has built-in basic level of search engine optimization, but there's a ton more you can do. You can get very advanced and very nuanced to improve it little by little. So I want to give you, if you've never heard of this concept before, the 4 basic rules that play into increasing your search engine optimization. The first one is the quality of your content. So this means, are you using proper English grammar? Do you have the pronunciation right? Do you have any spelling errors? Are you using a lot of exclamation points or a lot of annoying capital letters? It should look very professional, very clean, and very grammatically correct. That'll give you a high quality of content on the pages of your website. The second factor is the level of user engagement. So if you have a user who comes to your site because maybe they searched for, bird rescue Manassas, Virginia, and that's what you do, but they come to your site and they don't see the information they're looking for, or they feel like, oh, I came to the wrong website, and they leave within a few seconds, that tells the search engines that you have a very low level of user engagement. And so this penalizes your SEO quite a bit. You need to encourage your visitors to stay on the page longer. For a minute or more is great. And you can do that by having relevant information, an interesting video to watch, good pictures, etc. The third factor is mobile friendliness. Because about 60% of people nowadays visit a website on a mobile phone, the search engines look to see if it's going to be compliant with a mobile phone. Any of the themes that you find that have been put out in the last 1 or 2 or even 3 years are going to probably be fine. They've already taken into account the mobile shift. But a theme from 5 or 6 years ago might very well not work well or at all on a mobile device. So these things do update kind of every year or two. And so it's good that you pick a modern theme when you're looking. And the last factor is the number and the quality of your inbound links. So an inbound link is a link that comes to your website from a different source, a different website. Could be a local news outlet's website. It could be a blog. It could be a YouTube video that links to your site, anything like that. And the higher number of links shows the search engines that you're a website with a good reputation, you have good information, you're a trusted source. So, briefly, that's what SEO, that's why it matters, and that's how to improve it on your WordPress website. So now we're going to shift a little bit from the generalities of what a WordPress website is and your considerations when choosing it to this is the reality of building a website in WordPress. You're going to be looking at this dashboard a lot. So I'm going to walk through the main sections here that you need to pay attention to because not all of them are going to be as useful or as relevant as some others. So over here on the left, we have what's called the toolbar. And the most important items here are the sections called media, pages, appearance, plugins, users, and settings. Each one of these will need to be properly set up before you're ready to launch your website. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on each of these so you know what you do in them. The first section here is the media management. This is where you add images for display on the website. You can also do some very basic image editing, like cropping an image or resizing it here, but nothing very fancy, not like Photoshop. So typically before you have images on a website, you're going to upload them here, and you can just click the button that says Add New, and you can upload one or multiple images. And once they're here in the media library, they are ready to be put on your website. The next section that you'll spend a lot of time in is page management. This is where you will add a new page, modify existing pages, and even delete a page if you're sure you don't want it anymore. So it's very easy to edit pages, and I'm going to show you more about that in a moment. And so this is where you're going to spend a lot of your time as you look at the different pages on your website. One thing I'll note here is that some of the pages here in the screenshot say, well, one says draft, and a draft page means you're working on this page, but it's not been published yet, meaning nobody can see it online. It's kind of a hidden page just for you. The home page here says it is the front page. So WordPress defines the front page as that default page somebody goes to if they type in your domain name. So if they type in www.yourbusiness.com and hit enter, what's that first page going to be? It's the front page. And you can designate any of these as the front page. You could say, oh, I want the about page to be the front page, and you can make that change with a couple of clicks. So any of these pages are optional, meaning you could delete every page here except for this front page. Whichever page is your front page, if you were to delete it, a visitor to your website would just simply get an error message, probably says 404, page not found, because you don't have any page listed as the front page. So just keep it in mind that every page here is optional, and some websites only have one page. And that's completely fine, but you can't and shouldn't delete the one that's marked as the front page. The next section is the theme management. This is where you can go to browse those kind of pre-provided WordPress themes. I mentioned they're very bare bones and not super useful for most businesses. This is also where you go to install a theme that you might have found on ThemeForest or ColorLib. And by the way, if I didn't mention it, those themes, there's a lot that are free there and some that you pay a one-time fee for, somewhere between $20 and $50. So whether or not you got a free theme there or you paid and you bought one, you will upload and install it here on this page. And I'll show you how to do that in a moment. It's very, very easy. And then your whole website theme is shifted over to that and you're ready to customize it. The next page is the plugin management. Here you can go to view all of the plugins that you have installed. You can search for new plugins. You can delete a plugin. And for some plugins, they have settings. You can change their settings here. So sometimes you're going to see a little pink or beige banner that says, hey, there's a new update for this plugin. Do you want to update now? I always encourage you to click the button to update the plugin now. You don't need to do much more than to click a button. But the reason why you want updated is, again, so your website is secure from any vulnerabilities, but also so it's compatible. So as Android or iOS or Microsoft, as they release new versions of operating systems, sometimes some code that they updated would mean a plugin or a thing on your website would work less well than it used to, or it might mean it breaks completely. And so the reason why you want to update plugins is because the creators of these plugins are aware of the changes. And after a week or a month, they're able to update the plugin to be compatible with the changes happening elsewhere in the world, right? On the internet or on your computer or your phone. So updating is important for the reason, so you're staying very compatible. The next section is the user management section. Here you can add new users for temporary or long-term work on your website. You're always going to be the primary administrator as the business owner, and you can create then subsets of users who have lesser privileges than administrator. If you just want them to edit a page or update content on a page, you can select their role and just give them the access that they need, and then also delete their username and access when their work is done. And lastly are the general settings section. Here's where you set your site title, which is the little amount of text that appears up at the top of the browser window, and some other settings like your time zone and things like that. Mostly these will be set automatically for you, but if you see that they're incorrect, you should come in and fill these out and click Save Changes down at the bottom before you launch your website. So before we jump over to this live demo of a website, where I'm going to walk you through those pages again to reinforce their importance, I want to talk a little bit more about the e-commerce capabilities of WordPress, specifically a plugin called WooCommerce. So some of you might have heard of this plugin, and it's the most popular e-commerce plugin for WordPress. It's a very easy to use yet powerful way to add the shopping cart and the credit card payment functionality to any WordPress website. It's specifically made for WordPress, so it integrates it with it very nicely. It gives you those pages and the backend processes for taking credit card payments and linking that to your bank account where you want the money deposited, essentially. WooCommerce takes a small percentage of sales, like I think it's around 0.5 or 1% as a fee, similar to the small credit card processing fee you pay for taking credit cards. And so WooCommerce is kind of the entry point for a lot of WordPress website builders into getting e-commerce. And I think it's a great option. I really like it. It's easy yet powerful, I think. So how to set up WooCommerce? The first step will be you're going to configure your basic settings in WooCommerce. Things like what country are you in, your business's billing address, the currency that you want to take. You can just set those things here. You can also tell it if you're going to sell physical or digital products, both or just one or the other. Now, WooCommerce is not a payment gateway. They are a plugin for WordPress websites. A payment gateway is the actual credit card processor, some of which are Stripe or PayPal. I think these are the two currently biggest payment processors for e-commerce online is Stripe and PayPal. Though there's other options as well. You might have a bank, like big banks like Chase will process e-commerce on websites. So with WooCommerce, you can pick which one you want to use. And if you have one not listed here, like a bank like Chase, you can often integrate that as well. It just has a few extra steps. And then after you set up how you're going to get paid, you can configure shipping methods. You can say, look, this I ship everything at a flat rate, or different products have different shipping policies, or maybe your things are digital downloads. Whatever your shipping is, you can set it up here and with WooCommerce. Now, if you're using WooCommerce on your WordPress website, adding new products is very, very simple. You'll see here on your dashboard, there'll be a new text icon and label that says products. And this has been added by the WooCommerce plugin. You can click add new, and then you can just put in your product name at the top, put in your text and your images and however you want to describe that product here in the main section below, and then click the button that's highlighted in red that says publish when you're ready to make that live. Of course, there are a few other settings. You can select a product category to help your e-commerce store stay organized. You can set your shipping rate, your return policy, all the things that are necessary to sell online, you can get to right here with WooCommerce. It's also very easy to edit a product's information. So if you already have a product listed, you want to change the price, or you want to change the number you have in inventory, again, set the shipping policy, or many other options on that product, you can set it here and edit the product with WooCommerce. So that was just a brief look at WooCommerce, but hopefully that'll answer some of the questions that I normally do get asked about it. Now, I want to take a little bit of time and jump over to this live website. Now, this is a WordPress dashboard, very similar to the presentation screenshots. Now, some of the items over here on the left will be new and different, and that's because the theme that this website is built on is actually called this. It's called Astra, so they get to add their own little icon here. So whatever theme you pick, you might find that it's added an icon to, and that's fine. But what I'm going to walk through are those main tabs that I talked about that are the really important ones that you need to be aware of. And the first one here is the Media tab. In the Media tab, you see all of the images that are on this website. Now, with most themes, they're going to start with placeholder images, and all of those will show up here. So you can see most of these are placeholder images of some sort of a play or acting company, I suppose. And you'll essentially be swapping those out with your own images for your website. You can, of course, delete these if you feel like it, but generally speaking, you have a lot of storage on your WordPress website, so you don't really need to worry about filling up your storage. So deleting any old pictures here is completely optional. To add a new image, you'll just click on the button up at the top that says Add New Media File, and you can just drag and drop an image right here or select your files and upload one or multiple images at once. The common image formats you'll use here is JPEG is the most common. If you need a transparent image, very useful if it's your company logo, you'll need to use the PNG file format. You'll also see here that it says the maximum upload file size is 2 gigabytes. So the maximum file size is important if you're trying to upload a very large image. For some reason, it needs to be over 5 or 10 megabytes. In this case, 2 gigabytes would be sufficient for a video. So you could upload a video file. Most people who host videos on their website or play videos on their website aren't actually uploading them here to their storage because that will fill up their storage very quickly. Instead, they're probably putting them on YouTube and embedding the YouTube player on their website, which is definitely possible with WordPress. So that's the media section. The next we're going to look at is pages. So here in pages, the theme that this website was built on came with most of these pages as the default. So each of these pages are optional, except for, the front page. So that's currently the title of the page is home. So that's in blue. So you can change the title of the page, but it's designated as the front page, which is what that indicates there. So I'm going to show you how to edit a page here. We have a couple options. As we hover over a page, I'll edit the home page. We have edit, quick edit, trash, and view. Quick edit just allows you to change like the title, not much else. Edit is where you want to go. Now, if you have the Elementor plugin installed, you'll see a little button here that says edit with Elementor. You'll have multiple options. You'll have quick edit, edit with Elementor. Sometimes you can wonder, well, which one should I do? If you have Edit with Elementor, then yeah, do that one. That is a very robust, streamlined, and powerful editing interface to change your page. This template didn't come with that, so I'm just going to click on the regular Edit button. It's just taking a moment here to load up. Okay, so here we are on the website. It's just a simple biography website. So here we have some text blocks. We have a heading, which is a gold color. We have a bold piece of text. We have a regular paragraph style of text. As we scroll down, we see we have different elements. We have images. So this editor and Elementor looks very similar to this. They're all called WYSIWYG editors, which stands for what you see is what you get. So whereas everything is laid out just like it will be on the actual website, I'm in this interface where I can change the text just by typing in the box. So if I want to add or delete anything, I just simply make those changes here. And so I am in the editing interface, but it is going to have the identical layout when a visitor sees it once I click Save these changes. So up at the top is a button that says Save Changes. And typically you will get a layout from your theme that is going to be pretty similar to what you need. And all you really need to do is go in and change the text and change the images for your own, and then click Save. So at a basic level, that's as easy as it can be. Now, it gets more complicated when you say, oh, it'd be really nice to have a video between these two sections, or you want to remove some stuff. Everything is possible, though it will take a little bit more time to learn how to do that and to navigate around the interface. But at a basic level, editing the pages of WordPress websites can be just this simple. You hop in your WYSIWYG editor, you type in the changes you want, and you click Save. So I'm going to go back now, and I'm going to say I'm not going to save any changes to this site. That's fine. So that's what you do in the Pages section. You can edit any of the pages that you have available there. Next, we're going to click on the Appearances tab, and this is where you will change your theme. Now, it's always advisable to spend a good amount of time picking your ideal theme before you start customizing it and building your website. Because if you build your website, let's say halfway with one theme and then decide you don't like the theme, you're going to end up redoing almost all of that work on a different theme. So spend some time on themeforest.net or ColorLib, browse the different themes they have. Once you find one, you can click this button here that says Add New Theme up at the top. Now, when I do that, I'm presented with the WordPress's default themes that are nice, but they're not they don't have a lot of features. And sometimes they're just not as complex or detailed as you need for your business website. Though all of these are free, and you can click on any one, click on this Activate button to see what it looks like with their kind of default placeholder text and images. But for most of you, you're going to find a third-party theme on themeforest.net or another site. And when you buy that or download that, you're going to get a zip file. And all you do to install it here is at the top, you click on the button that says Upload Theme. And it says if you have a zip format file, you install it here. So you just choose it and click Install. It might take a few minutes to upload and install, and then it'll be here in the list and you can activate it. So it's very simple to activate that theme you just got from a third-party website here, if you don't find one in their default list that is suitable for your needs. Next, we're going to look at the plugins section. Again, this is where you can see all of the active or running plugins. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plugins here, all of which have an update. So shame on me. It's been a while since I've updated these, but it's very easy to click on it to update it. You just click on the button that says Update Now, and it'll just update that plugin. Generally speaking, 99.99% of the time, you will never run into a problem updating a plugin. It only is beneficial. However, there's a very small chance that the code in that plugin update does mess up something else on the website, some other factor or element you have that wasn't properly tested or just some weird configuration problem. So if that does happen, you can usually roll back to the last version of a plugin. But just so you know, it's almost always best to update plugins as you get them. Now, to search for and add a new plugin, you click on the button that's at the top that says Add New Plugins. What I see here is a plugin store. Think of this a bit like the App Store for your phone. You can search, you can view featured plugins, or I can click on popular. These are popular plugins. Now, there's a lot of plugins. They'll have very eye-catchy icons and they seem to do great stuff. But I'd advise you not to install plugins unnecessarily. The reason is because the more plugins you have, the more code is running on your website in the background. Now, whether or not you're using a plugin, if it's installed, there's the option that it is doing things in the background when a user's on the website and could be slowing down the website. Oftentimes, when I look at a website that somebody said, this is just very slow, right? Everything's slow and sluggish. What's going on? They might have 20 or 30 or 50 plugins installed. And I know that immediately that's the reason why. One or multiple of those plugins is misbehaving and just slowing down the website, probably in combination with other plugins. So the best thing to do is to find a business need that you have. Let's say you need a contact form. Well, you can find one. Here's contact form 7. It has a lot of reviews. It has 4 out of 5 stars, so very, very good. And you can click on more details, and this will show you more details of what the plugin does. And so you can read about it. And if you agree that it's what, so be frugal when it comes to using plugins. They definitely give necessary and beneficial enhancements to a website without needing to code or really even to pay any money for them. But you don't want more than you need because they can slow down your website from time to time. The next tab we're going to look at is the user tab. Here we have the main administrative login for this entire website, which is me. To add a new user, I'll just click on the button at the top that says Add New User. You can put in a username, which this is required. I often just use the email address. So let's say you hiring a graphic designer to put some images on your website. You're going to put in their email address here. Their username can be their email address too. I feel like that keeps it really simple. You don't need to put in a first name, last name, or website if you don't want. And when I mentioned before that it's good to have a secure, random, long password, this is kind of what I'm talking about. So as you can see, WordPress is recommending a thing like this for a secure password. Now you can click the Generate Password button and it will generate any number of random passwords. So yes, it's good to keep in mind that a password, something like this is good. It doesn't need to be quite that long. If it's about half as long, WordPress still says, okay, it's medium secure, but that is much, much better than using, a common word, for example. It's as nearly impossible to guess that password randomly when it's at that length. The last thing you want to do is select a role for this person. I wouldn't make anybody an administrator other than you. You shouldn't need to do that. If they're going to create changes to page outlines and layouts, they should be an editor. If they're going to be adding text to pages, editing and adding images and stuff, it can be an author. So these are your two best roles to pick from when you create a new user login. And then just click the button, Add New User. You can have up to about 100 users on your website. It's completely free, so I encourage you to make use of this great feature if you're allowing other people to work on your website. Now, the settings is the last thing you need to check before you can launch your WordPress website. By default, these are going to be pre-configured by your host, and most of this information will be correct, though you want to just glance through and make sure everything's good. Make sure your time zone's correct. Your site title is actually important for your website's SEO. This is actually looked at by the search engines. So you want to put in your industry or the type of products and goods you sell. You can put that into your site title and tagline. And keep in mind that these settings here in the general settings are more foundational than any settings you have made on your website in the theme or on the pages, right? So these are actually persistent. If you change your themes, these settings will remain unchanged. So they're really the most basic and foundational settings that have control over your WordPress website. And one thing I'll note here is that many of you will have a contact form on your WordPress website, and the default email address that receives those submissions of the form is always this one here. They call it the administration email address. So if you want it to go to you, or you say maybe you have a billing or inquiries address you want those to go to, or somebody else in your company, you change it here under the general settings, and this is where the contact forms go by default, right to this email right here. So that's just a really quick look at this WordPress dashboard. At a minimum, you'll need to kind of master these different sections that I've just described. And don't feel overwhelmed right now. I know it feels like, wow, there's just a ton of pages, a ton of buttons to click. I mean, how am I going to remember it all? Well, one, you'll get an email of this presentation. So you'll have this to refer to. But also just after, I think, 2 or 3 hours, almost anybody would be familiar enough with this interface to be comfortable in editing and launching a WordPress website. So it's not out of the reach of everybody in this meeting, I'm sure. And that concludes the formal part of this presentation. I'd be happy to take your questions now for the remainder of our time.
Thank you, Cameron. We do have about 10 questions, so we'll get started on those now. Back at the beginning, the first question that came in was, what about using an AI site builder, for example, ALF, B12, Wix, etc.?
Right. Well, Wix, I haven't heard of ALF or B12, but Wix does have some more features which will build a website. Let me refer to the slide where I compare them again, because whereas you do have the ability to use AI to kind of build a website with Wix, and even WordPress, as I mentioned, are having more and more AI features, and this is only accelerating. I think in the next year or two, websites it'll be even more of an AI. You give it a prompt, it creates a website. I think that's great. But what we're really talking about here is the platform. Does WordPress as a platform have the features that your business needs? Do you need the hosting flexibility, the plugin support? Again, creating the theme of the website is just the first step. After that, it's managing your e-commerce inventory, and WooCommerce does a great job with that. It's about being a cost-effective solution. Do you want to pay $80 a month for Shopify or 6 to 10 for WordPress? And they do essentially the same thing. So I think AI is great. I think it's all headed that way for designing the site. Much of the maintenance and the administrative work you do as a business owner doesn't really change with the fact that AI is helping to make that initial website. So it's a great question, but my opinion is still that WordPress is competitive when it comes to AI. And as all of these different companies put more and more AI into the website building process, WordPress will be keeping up too. And I think all the pros are still favor it very strongly for this type of group for small business owners.
This next question might actually be answered in your next webinar, but I'll go ahead and ask it here. What kind of payment mode do you recommend for just a few transactions? For example, selling an online course once a semester.
Right. So if you're selling one course, then it could be a one-time payment. That could be an option. WooCommerce definitely gives you the ability to sell a digital product. So that's the option you would check there. You would say, here's the price. It can be one time if you want it to be recurring. So maybe they pay $29 a month and they get access to updates. You update every month. You can do that with WooCommerce as well. Then you can provide them. You can do several ways to get them that information for a course. You can email them an email that you draft ahead of time, kind of with the links to access the content. You can say, hey, thanks for signing up for the course. Here's the links to get started. So that's a simple way to do it, is just have an automatic email go out when people buy a digital product like a course. There's lots of other ways you can sell courses as well. There's entire platforms built around just selling online courses. One's called Coursera, and they don't only help you take billing and payments for your course and upload the content, but they're a search portal. So if someone's looking for a course on how to make handmade, pasta, for example, there could be courses on just the specific thing, and it can be a portal for people to find your courses as opposed to you just having to market your website on your own. So, yes, you can do it on your own website, but also if you're just doing the courses, you might look at posting it on a place like Coursera.
Okay, this next question, I'm going to give you the background. It's a lengthy question, but there's some background. And then I think the question more or less comes at the end. So this attendee says, I have WordPress with web hosting through SiteGround. My builder is Beaver Builder, not Elementor. First year was great price went up. This says I had the Grow Big plan that included a staging site. If I go down to the startup plan, they lose access to the staging site, but can still restore from an earlier daily backup if needed. It says, I can't find any access to anything that is less than that. Do I really need a staging site for a simple one-person massage therapy website? And also, are there any ways to make SiteGround less expensive, if you're familiar with them?
Right. So your first question, do you need a staging site? No, no, you really don't. Because look, a staging site is useful. Let's say you're a business, you're having thousands of visitors a day, and you need to completely overhaul your entire website. Well, you need to have one being built while the other one's still online. You can't have any downtime. So you have a staging site where you have a whole team of people that build everything from scratch, this new version, and then at midnight on some day you flip a switch and it goes live. But for most businesses, a small business who's not having thousands of people a day visiting your website, if you need to edit some text or some images on your site, you can just go into the editor, like I showed you. You can make those changes and click save. The next person to go to your website will see the updated site. It's just very easy. Also, you can put pages in draft mode, which is like a simple version of having this kind of site built on the side, where in draft mode, you can be working on a page and you can spend a few days on it, weeks on it until it's ready, and then you can click publish. And so this is a feature given by WordPress to every WordPress user, is the ability to have a draft page and then publish it. So for your type of business, no, I don't think there's any need to have a staging site. A lot of hosts like to upsell that kind of thing because most people don't really know if they'll need that or not, but they kind of buy into the idea, oh, I probably need that. But I don't think most people do. I mean, for the 100 websites I worked on in the last few years, maybe one or two have ever needed the staging site type of feature. Most, they just really don't need it. To your other question of can you get a cheaper price on the host called SiteGround? I'm not really sure. I'm not an expert on SiteGround. Their hosting plans are typically published on their website. They have different options. You can always talk to their support and say, look, you're not using all these features, all these options. Could they do something? Could they lower the price? Could they give you a monthly discount? I don't know. It never hurts to ask. I feel like a lot of these companies is very competitive, so they'd rather not lose a customer. They'd rather give you 20% off if they can keep you. So it doesn't hurt to ask.
Okay, so this next question is, can you explain the difference between the classic editor, the standard editor, the Divi Builder build, and the block editor? She thinks she referred to it as the Gutenberg.
Yeah. Yeah. So as I mentioned in my example, we had edit and quick edit, and I said there might also be one called edit with Elementor there. So Divi, to answer that one first, Divi, D-I-V-I, is kind of like a competitor to Elementor. You will not probably see them in the same website. They're both an editing interface, and so they basically do the same thing. So if you see an edit with Divi button, you can kind of consider that as like an edit with Elementor. It's a more robust, user-friendly interface to move things around on your website and customize the layout and the design. The Gutenberg editor, I've heard the term, but it's not something that I've used much. It is another pre-built-in editor interface. So when a developer for a website theme starts making it, they can choose, do they want to integrate Divi? Do they want to integrate Elementor? Do they want to integrate Gutenberg? They often will just choose one. And if they don't choose any of those kind of advanced editing interfaces, you get the default one, which I just showed you. It's just called, it says edit. Now, it's completely fine. A lot of the websites, 30 or 40% of the websites I work on, I just do that. I just use the simple basic WordPress editor. It's completely fine. Usually you don't need anything more. Divi is more, Elementor is more. And so if you have one of those options, that's fine. But don't feel let down if you're just using the basic edit interface, because again, it's sufficient for 98% of the websites out there probably.
Let's see, next question. So can images be used, or do we need to pay for them? This was early on too in your presentation.
Mhm. Yeah, I probably would need some more clarification. It sounds like you might be asking, can you use stock images, or where can you find free images for a website? I mean, most people building websites will go out and take their own images of their business, of their products, or whatever it is. Having your own images that you take yourself, or have a professional photographer take, I think is always the best. One piece of advice is using stock photos is a bit risky because it can give the impression that the website was not built with a lot of care and intentionality. If they look blatantly stock, it can just make the website look a bit cheap. And so spending a few hours thinking about what pictures will really help sell your product or your service, taking some good pictures, and putting them on the website will help set you apart from other websites selling the similar type of product. So if you want to follow up and give some more information, feel free, but I think that probably answers some of your question.
I couldn't agree with you more, Cameron. Keeping it personal, it's always good.
Mhm.
Let's see, next question. Does updating your theme run the risk of changing the content layout?
That's a great question. Because themes are written by thousands of different developers, I can't say with 100% certainty it will or it will not. In my experience, updating a theme is almost always just making improvements or tweaks on the back end of the theme that will never change how it looks. It shouldn't change how it looks. But essentially, as a operating system like Windows gets an update, they're now rendering an image file format differently than they did last year. So what the theme is doing and updating, it's saying, okay, I'm going to be compliant with this new structure that Windows has, so the site is fast, so it loads fast, so it has good SEO, things like that. Most of the updates are completely behind the scenes. Now, it might happen occasionally that you update a theme and something visibly changes or breaks. It is possible, right? There's always, like I said, that very small risk. I've only seen that happen once or twice in my entire time of working on WordPress websites. If it does happen, usually each theme developer, the person behind it, has a contact information. You could say, look, I did this update and then I noticed this isn't working right, or this looks different as bad. They should jump on board and help you fix it. And you can always read reviews of the themes. Like on ThemeForce, they have a star rating and it talks about how responsive the developers are. So if you see a theme and it has a low rating and some of the comments are like, the developer never replied to my request for help, it might be a red flag. Most of the themes I've used, the developers are great. I mean, they're responsive within 12 or 24 hours. They're troubleshooting. Some of them will even ask you to create a login for them. They'll go into your website and help diagnose the problem from the inside, and then you can remove their access. So that's a great piece of customer service right there. So yeah, there's different levels, I would say. So it's probably a safe bet to update it.
Next question. How can a website that is not built in Elementor most easily be transformed to Elementor? What are the pros and cons of that?
Right. So I did have a brief description of how to put Elementor on a website that didn't have it. You just go to the plugins, you search for Elementor, and you click and install. So the pros and cons, generally when I've used Elementor, it's come pre-bundled with a theme, because normally the theme developer will say, I want to include Elementor with the theme, and it's a plugin that comes pre-installed. But installing it yourself generally works just fine. You will generally have that button that says Edit with Elementor. The only thing is, because the theme wasn't written with Elementor in mind, it could have some odd things happen. What those would be could just vary a lot from theme to theme. You could find that certain um, elements of the page don't display correctly, or you can't figure out how to edit a text block because it's being hidden by something else. Like, it could be some weird incompatibilities. Elementor does say you can install it as a plugin for any WordPress theme out there if it doesn't already have it. And I've done that on a few, but I'm by no means like the definitive expert on doing that process. So I would say you can try it, especially if your website isn't live yet. If you're just building a website, first day, you got a theme, you install Elementor plugin, you check it out, everything works great, then you're good to go. If immediately your website looks weird or breaks, you might say, okay, well, I tested it out and it's not working for me. So yeah, I would proceed with caution, but I don't anticipate there's always going to be a problem. I think usually that should work.
Let's see. Okay, this next one is two questions and then a reaction. So we'll start with the first question.
Mhm.
Can we work on learning WordPress without having a website?
Well, that's a great question. So if you want to actually get in and go through the interface like I was, click around, delete pictures, upload pictures, I don't know of a sandbox environment that's made for the public to do that. It's a really good question. It might exist. If you Google sandbox WordPress environment, try that and see if you find some company that just created this environment for you because it could be really useful. Otherwise, you could always pay $6 a month, create a hosting plan with a company, go find a free WordPress theme, and for $6, you got a website you're playing around with, right? It could be a very inexpensive way for you to actually tweak and customize. But as opposed to a sandbox environment where you don't control the content, you're building something you could use for your business later down the road. So I think for $6, it's probably a pretty good investment just to go set up your own hosting account, because that's all you would end up paying as that small monthly fee.
The next question was, I know what website name they want to buy, but how do I actually buy it?
So most website hosts out there they want you to buy your domain name with them and host with them. That's how they make their money. So they're probably always the entry is always you want a domain, search for it, click buy now, sign up for your hosting plan, pay for that too. So one a good example of this is GoDaddy, and GoDaddy was on my list of recommended WordPress hosts. GoDaddy is a very big company in the world where you can both buy your domain name and host your WordPress website. So go to GoDaddy.com and then you can buy. You'll need to create an account to host the domain name and the hosting plan. But the whole thing will just take you 5 or 10 minutes, and you'll be set up with a WordPress hosting plan, which will then pop you into the dashboard, which you just saw, and you'll be able to just start going like I showed you today. If you don't want to use GoDaddy, there's a ton of other hosting platforms out there. Bluehost is another one that's a little bit cheaper. There's literally hundreds. So you could just search for WordPress hosting and pick whichever hosting company you like.
And the comment that I mentioned was amazing presentation. She had no idea that this tool was free. So thank you for sharing.
Oh,
Next
thanks.
question is, how difficult is it to create or add a video or to upload it?
Yeah. So I generally don't recommend you upload a video to your WordPress website unless it was very small. Two reasons is because one, if your video is a gigabyte or 2 gigabytes, your hosting plan is going to have a limit. Now that limit might be 10, it might be 20, it might be 50 gigabytes, but you definitely have a limit. So if you upload a couple big videos, you could be hitting the limit of your storage, your file storage for your website, in which case you'll have to pay more money. Secondly is as people watch your video, that's using the bandwidth of your hosting server, of that computer. So they stream a gigabyte video, you've just used a gigabyte of data. And with your hosting plan and the fine print, there's always a data limit because they can't have a website getting 1 billion users a day using more data than like all their other websites they're hosting combined. So they're always going to put a limit on the bandwidth you can use. So having more bandwidth and more storage gets very expensive. So I recommend you'd always host with a platform like YouTube. So it's free. You can create an account, a YouTube account for your business. You can upload the file, the video there and have it private if you want, meaning it won't even be searchable in YouTube. The only way you can view it is with the embedded video on your website. The only downside is when somebody clicks play, it will say in the bottom corner, like it's playing from YouTube. You can't get rid of their little watermark. But other than that, that's the way almost every business will do it nowadays because it's more cost effective and you're not relying on your own hosting infrastructure serve the video bandwidth. You're letting YouTube have all those costs.
One of our attendees, this is kind of going back to our last question about learning WordPress. She shared that she learned WordPress by first starting a blog on WordPress.com, that they have really good help and how-to instructions. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, it's great information.
So let's see, next question. So is there any other tech support we will need to get with WooCommerce, or does it handle itself?
WooCommerce, and I'll go to a slide here so we can look at it in more detail. So these are some of the screens that you will be interacting with as you set up WooCommerce. There's kind of the basic settings. I think anybody can follow through and fill them out. Your address, your currency. When it comes to the second step, integrating your payment gateway, your payment processor, this can get a little bit confusing because WooCommerce is going to have to log into your Stripe account or your PayPal account if you're using one of those. It's going to have to authenticate. Usually this works fine, you know. They work together a lot, these companies. Sometimes there's problems, right? It might say error. It might just time out. It might like spin a circle for 5 minutes and not do anything. If you ever run into an error, then yes, both WooCommerce and PayPal have a support that you can talk to. You can get both of them on the phone. Generally speaking, it'll be PayPal or Stripe that you'll interact with. But WooCommerce also has technical support. They're a fairly big company. They're used by, I'd say, hundreds of millions of websites for e-commerce, so they're not a small plugin. So yeah, I think the support for both of these is good. Um, they're helpful, and for the most part, setting up WooCommerce has been very painless for me and the small businesses who I've worked with. But if you do run into an error, I'm sure you can be assured that there will be support either from the PayPal side or from the WooCommerce side. They should both have phone numbers available that you can call.
Next question was, does Wix still put you at a disadvantage compared to WordPress from an SEO perspective, or have they and the others caught up?
I think that they're all pretty comparable, right? As of mid 2024, beginning of 2025, I don't see that there's a lot of difference in the approach to handling the basic SEO functionality. They're all very big players in the website platform space, WordPress being the biggest. So they all have a lot of competitiveness. And so one of the things that they try to excel at is making sure your website is SEO compatible with the latest changes. So any of the four that I mentioned in that comparison slide, I feel like they're all pretty comparable there. Now, I do think WordPress is by far and away the best at letting you fine tune your SEO. We didn't talk about the SEO plugins, but there are plugins to help you with SEO on WordPress that can do amazing things. You know, they can look at every word on your website, look at 100 of your competitors' websites, do all this background research, and then provide recommendations of what keywords or phrases would help boost your SEO. Really great insights. One is called Monster SEO if you're looking for an SEO plugin, but there's many others. One is called Yoast, Yoast SEO. So yeah, while they all start with the same foundation, which I feel like is comparable, WordPress gives you the ability to get much more advanced. So if you're a mid-size or large business, you need the flexibility WordPress provides there to get really fine-tune and dial in your SEO, which is very valuable as your business grows.
So this question fits right in. What are the best practices for SEO once your site is built?
Yeah. So the couple of plugins, what they do is, you know, they're going to want a small monthly fee. I think they charge $20 or $30 a month. But what they do is that they constantly look at your website, competitors' websites, search ranking trends, data on Google, on Microsoft, and they will, if they see something you can do better in with your words or even your images, and there's other elements to SEO, your image tags in the background, they will give you active recommendations, you know, as frequently as you want. So it can be daily, weekly, monthly. So yeah, if you have a couple hours each month, you can be looking at the recommendations they've given you and implementing them, mostly like text changes and things like that. So yeah, they're proactively helping you with your SEO.
Let's see, can the WordPress pages be carried over from one hosting platform to another? For example, if I currently use GoDaddy to host, Can I then use Bluehost in the future? Do you find one platform to be more cost effective and business friendly than another?
Yeah.
That's
So
questions.
one question is, can you like transfer a WordPress website? Technically, yes. So there's a few plugins out there that specifically help you migrate a WordPress website or back it up. So essentially, you'll back up every single thing, every file, image, background, style sheet, everything for your website. There's probably hundreds of files. It'll put it in a zip file, which you can download. And so if you needed to restore your website, you have everything in a zip file. Technically, you can move that zip file to a new host, like from GoDaddy going to Bluehost or the other way around, and you could then extract those files into WordPress and it should all work. It doesn't always work, and the reason is because different hosts might be running slightly different versions of server operating systems or have different configurations of RAM or processing power. So sometimes you think, well, it should be identical, but sometimes it doesn't work just the way it should. That said, I think the better host, I do recommend GoDaddy frequently because they are, I believe, a few dollars more per month than Bluehost. They just seem to be a little bit more user friendly, and their customer service is more readily accessible, which I find if you're a small business owner, paying $2 more a month is nothing compared to getting somebody on the phone in 5 or 10 minutes who can actually help you, right? It's you much rather have the help than to have that than save $2 a month. I think Bluehost is a bit more streamlined and budget oriented, so their support is not quite as responsive as GoDaddy's. So yeah, I recommend GoDaddy for the most part for the small businesses.
Let's see, next question. Are stock photos on blog posts okay? And do blog posts still improve SEO?
Blog posts do improve SEO. The reason is because say you have a business that sells different types of products. Maybe you're pet oriented and you sell products for cats, dogs, and goldfish and birds. You probably can't cram all the information about the products or new products you're launching or trends in your industry. You can't fit all that on your homepage or the pages about your products, but rather you can write specific blog posts to really dive deep into a certain thing that's interesting to your product or to the buyers of your product. So it could be a trend in the industry, could be a new product you're launching. So blog posts are really good for that. For here's some more extra information, extra text. And again, the text can be useful for SEO because they have a higher probability of coming up with for a match from a search term. So if your blog post is on new evolution of some product for birds, I don't own birds, so I don't really know what products are out there for them, but you have a new product coming out and this is something that's being searched for a lot now, then definitely have a blog post on it because that blog post can be found. And then your website can be navigated to from the blog post as being that entry point. Now, your second question of using stock photos, again, I really would shy away from that stock photos, especially as we're getting into 2025. I think there's a bit of exhaustion coming from if it just looks overly, stock photos are overly used. Now, maybe it's a picture of a stock photo picture of a parakeet. It's just like a picture you would have taken of a parakeet yourself if you wanted to. So you can't tell the difference. Probably nobody else will tell the difference either. It's probably fine. Stock photos of people, stock photos of, general situations can look really bad nowadays because they can look very much like they're generic stock photos. So try to take your own photos if you can. Otherwise, just use your best judgment.
Okay, we currently have two more questions. I think we can do it. Let's see. Is Jetpack like Elementor?
Jetpack actually has a lot of different features. It's a bit complicated to describe, and I don't even know all of its features. I've interacted with it in the sense that it does kind of some SEO and background analysis of your website. Um, but you asked if it's like Elementor. In my experience, it's not really an editing interface like Elementor, at least unless they've added some sort of functionality on like that. It's more like helping you do back-end tweaks and optimizations to your website and kind of gathering data on the website. It's more of like a data analytics and information tool. So an Elementor isn't really built for that at all. It's just that interface for rearranging and modifying the content on certain pages of your website.
And last question. First of all, thanking you for the presentation. Any particular tips for Bluehost?
Well, we've talked about Bluehost a little bit. Last time I checked, they were one of the more affordable options. You know, they have good uptime, which is obviously the amount of time their servers are not down out of the year. So they're reliable. They're cheaper. I don't know if they're based in the US. I believe GoDaddy is. I think they're a US company. I don't know if Bluehost is, but a lot of these companies, they might be based in a country like the US, but most of their computers and servers might be offshore. They might be who knows where in the world. So I think Bluehost is because they're more budget oriented, they might rely more on less expensive hosting arrangements. But I'm not entirely sure. So yeah, I think it's a good choice. I've used Bluehost as well as GoDaddy, so I think either one of those would be top recommendations for me.
Okay. We had one more question drop in. I think we have time. Let's see. What's the best way to set up a novice user who will be working on updates to the site, but also learning WordPress as they go along? They would mostly work in draft mode, but what privileges should they be set up with, and what would they need to do so they don't do lasting damage?
Mhm.
Did you get it?
Yes, well, if let's say if you want them to edit web pages, they should be the editor level, which is just the second down from administrator. Being an editor, they can change content of pages, they can add, remove pages, but they can't do certain things like I think installing plugins or things like that. Only you could do that. So I think it's great to have them learning. It's not to say they couldn't mess up something. So I would probably find a plugin that's a backup plugin, which will allow you to, again, kind of take a snapshot and download all of your content in a file that you could just keep on your computer. These backend plugins also have a way to restore very easily. And some of them get even more nuanced. So you could say, if your editor messed up a page, maybe it was the services page, say, everything else was fine. You could go to your backup and restore just one page, restore the services page to before they messed with it. So that's your best bet, right? You have a lot of control. You can take a backup every day. You can keep them archived for a long, long time. So it gives you peace of mind. If they mess up a page, it won't be permanent. Also, being only an editor level, they won't be able to mess up the entire domain name or the hosting environment. They don't have those privileges.
So that is the last question. Do you have any last words of wisdom for us, Cameron?
Well, I think they're all great questions, and I thank you for your participation. And hopefully, this was valuable information. Feel free to tune in next month as we have another session on the digital topics, and I look forward to seeing you all there.
Great. Cameron, thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us today. As a reminder, you will receive an email with a link to the recording and the slides. If you would like to sign up for upcoming webinars or access recorded webinars, please visit virginiasbdc.org/training. You can sign up for a free and confidential advising session by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org or via our website. Thank you all again, and we hope to see you at our next presentation in June. Take care, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.